Hello, everyone. This is Sean from Barry Digital Media, and I hope you are doing well. Today, I put into Google spontaneous market forces caused by consumers. And Google responds spontaneous market forces caused by consumers. Spontaneous market forces are largely driven by the collective, uncoordinated actions of individual consumers. This idea is embodied in consumer sovereignty, the principle that consumers, by making choices about what goods and services to purchase, ultimately dictate what is produced. Here is how these forces play out. The invisible hand. Adam Smith's concept of the invisible hand illustrates how individuals pursuing their own self-interest can inadvertently lead to outcomes that benefit society as a whole. When consumers choose to buy certain products, they signal their preferences to producers. This drives competition among producers who, in their pursuit of profit, strive to offer better quality goods at lower prices to attract consumers. This competition leads to innovation, increased efficiency, and an overall improvement in the standard of living, according to Investopedia. Supply and demand. Consumers' preferences play a vital role in shaping the demand for goods and services. When demand for a particular product increases, the price of that product tends to rise, signaling the producers that there is an opportunity to increase their profits by producing more of that product. Conversely, if consumers' preferences shift away from that particular product, the demand for that product will decrease, leading to a fall in price and potentially reduction in production. This dynamic interplays between supply and demand, driven by consumer behavior, helps to establish an equilibrium in the market where the quantity supplied roughly equals the quantity demanded, according to Investopedia. 3. Consumer behavior and market pricing. Consumer behavior and preferences have a direct impact on market pricing. For example, customers who highly value organic products will be likely and be willing to pay a premium for them, according to the Allied Business of Academics or of Academies. This drives up the prices of organic goods due to higher demand and potentially higher production costs. Consumer price sensitivity, or how responsive demand is to change in price, also influences pricing strategies. Products with high price sensitivity, like many consumer electronics, may see significant changes in the demand with even small price fluctuations, while products with low price sensitivity, like some necessities, may be less affected by price changes. Limitations of consumer sovereignty. While consumer sovereignty is a powerful concept, there are limitations to how much control consumers truly exert over the market. For example, marketing and advertising can influence consumer choices, potentially leading to purchases that don't fully align with their genuine need or desire. Monopolies or oligopolies can also limit consumer power by reducing competition and potentially dictating terms or prices. Furthermore, government regulation, taxes, and tariffs can also impact the availability and pricing of products, overriding consumer preferences to some extent. In conclusion, consumer spending is a major driver of economic activity, representing a significant portion of the global GDP. While the spontaneous market forces driven by consumer preferences are a powerful engine of economic growth and efficiency, it's important to acknowledge that the relationship between customers and the market is complex and subject to various influences and limitations. So that was a more of an academic response from Google than I was expecting, but I think it was good. I had also clicked on the news tab just to see what sort of things that it would bring up here. And it came up with understanding the invisible hand in economics, key insights. That could be interesting. And it looks like that's the one that Google mostly took from. So it might be interesting to go into that and exactly see what sort of like SEO or AI SEO, I forget what it's called, what they took to help optimize this article. Factors affecting impulse buying behaviors of consumers. That's pretty interesting, and I'm going to get into it in a second. Shifts in consumer behavior towards organic products. Theory-driven data analytics, free market definition and impact on the economy. Okay, so let's check out the 5 effects of impulse buying. Impulse buying, characterized by unplanned and spontaneous purchases, can have several negative effects. These include financial strain, feeling of guilt or regret, strained relationships, and potential damage to credit score. Additionally, impulse buying can lead to a decrease in overall financial well-being. This seems like it's taking more of a negative response. So maybe we'll do a positive one as well. Here's more detailed look of the effects. Financial strain. Impulse purchases can quickly deplete savings or lead to debt accumulation, especially when multiple unplanned purchases are made. Guilt and regret. Buying items on impulse often lead to feeling of guilt or regret once the initial excitement fades or the consequences of the purchase become apparent. Relationship strain. Impulse buying can strain relationships if it leads to financial difficulties, arguments, or perceived lack of consideration for the other personal needs or desires. Negative impact on credit score. If impulse buying leads to overspending and difficulty managing debt, it can negatively affect a person's credit score, impacting their ability to secure loans, rents, an apartment, or even get a job, decrease financial well-being. Overall, a pattern of impulse buying can undermine an individual's financial security and long-term financial goals. So the last one was negatives, and now I added in positive into my search. And it'll give me positive results. But that's also kind of an important skill to have just in general. Sometimes you'll get a response or someone's talking about all the negatives on a specific topic, and that's usually not the complete picture. There's usually positive and negatives to everything. That's including like diversity, inclusivity, and all those kind of things. There's usually positive and negatives to all these different kind of things. While often associated with negative financial consequences, impulse buying can, in some instances, lead to positive outcomes. It can provide a temporary mood boost, enhance the shopping experience, introduce unexpected treasures, increase spending, and foster a sense of spontaneity. However, it's crucial to remember that these positive effects are typically short-lived and should not overshadow the potential for overshadowing and financial difficulties. Here are 5 potential positive effects of impulse buying. Mood boost. Impulse purchases can provide a quick and easy way to experience temporary lift in mood, often described as retail therapy. Enhanced shopping experience. Discovered unexpected items or finding a great deal on something you didn't initially plan can make the shopping experience more enjoyable and memorable. Souvenirs are probably a great example of that. Introduction to new products. Impulse buys can expose customers to items they might not have considered otherwise, potentially leading to the discovery of favorite or useful products. I think a good example of this would be sales. So, an anecdotal experience of mine recently was I was considering getting some granola bars, one of the ones that I really like. But then above the product I usually buy, I saw an item that was on sale, and it was $1 off, and it was from a somewhat well-known brand, but not one that I usually go for. But I made the impulse decision to try the other one, and overall it worked out. I don't think that I would buy it over the one that I usually like, but it was a positive experience. I didn't regret buying the alternate product. And maybe if it's on sale again a couple months later, I might go ahead and splurge on the other one. Increased spending for businesses, impulse buys can lead to higher average transaction values and increased revenue, especially when strategically placed and presented. Yeah, that's a good point. That's basically upselling, and you'll usually, if you go into a shop, you'll usually find those little items around the cash register. If the salesman is a good salesman, then they will likely offer these upsells to the customer. And it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes these upsells can actually be something that will enhance the customer satisfaction on a big ticket item. So, for example, if somebody's buying a television screen and you want to make sure that your television screen is well protected and also clean, you can get some of the special cleaning solution that they have there, where it'll clean the screen while also not damaging the screen. Sometimes the screen has like special protections on it, and so these cleaners will get the job done while also keeping the value of the high ticket item. Spontaneity and fun. Sometimes giving into impulse can add a sense of excitement and spontaneity to life, especially when it comes to things like trying new restaurants and attending last minute events. Okay, I liked this response much better. I would have preferred that this is the one that it came up with rather than that first one. This one has, of course, the moral guiding to it, but it also makes in some positives to impulse buying as well. Economic factors affecting consumer behavior with examples. So, economic factors significantly impact consumer behavior, influencing spending habits, purchasing powers, and overall demand for goods and services. These factors include personal income, family income, income expectations, savings, liquid assets, and consumer credits, and the overall economic situation. This is probably a big one, the economic situation these days. Now, well, I mean, pretty much at any time. The economy is this big, robust engine, and if there's something that slows down that economy or influence it in a specific way, then that can greatly affect people's purchasing power and decisions. So the common one these days is tariffs. For some people, the tariffs greatly affect them, but then other people, what I mean is for some people, the tariffs greatly positively affect them, but then there are other people that it negatively affects as well. So that's a big thing. And then of course I should mention personal incomes as well. Um, Most people, I mean, I forget what the average is, but the average family income in the United States, I think, is like $100,000. So between kids, between daily foods for the wife and husband, those things all add up. So sometimes decisions need to be made jointly. Anyways, looking at just what Google Gemini here, what it responds with is similar to what the AI did, but let's just quickly review this to see if there's anything else that jumps out spontaneously at us. Spontaneous market forces driven by consumers are powerful, decentralized, and often unintentional effects that result from the collective actions of individual buyers rather than being planned or orchestrated by a central authority. These forces emerge naturally through the pursuit of self interest and the voluntary exchange of goods and services. This concept is a core tenet of free market economics. Spontaneous order, the invisible hand, supply and demand, consumer demand, producer supply. That's a big one. Like that's one of the issues, with trade is if you don't have enough resources to create your product, then you might not be able to create your product. Price as signal, how consumers cause spontaneous market forces, shifting preferences and tastes. Yeah, I mean, A couple of years ago, the big thing was Chinese food. Now it seems to be a little bit more Mexican food, but who knows? In the next couple of years, it might be something completely different. Technological adoption. I mean, the big one recently was AI. I mean, as you can see on the screen, AI has a big effect, and I think it's going to be a big effect and a big change, winds of change for the next long time, let's say. And then same thing with robotics as well. I think robotics is going to play a big change. If you take a look at an Amazon warehouse, that is probably a marvel in itself. All you had, maybe 100 employees who were taking care of sorting and shipping out a lot of products, and having that all being replaced by robots and having it done more efficiently, faster, without possibility of injuries, and more cheaply as well, and constantly improving. That's a big technological adoption. Now, odds are those people who are working will probably find other jobs, but the adoption of technology is a big change of market forces. The rise of ethical consumerism, I do see that, although I'm not sure exactly how big it is. I'm pretty sure it's actually weighing down in the last maybe year or two. Influence of word of mouth and reviews. Word of mouth is big, and I think that still has an effect in the digital age as well, especially if you look at a Shopify or an Amazon store page, you want to look at the reviews, although you can buy fake reviews, let's say. But I think the reviews still have a strong effect. And then the thing is, there's also influencers as well that you can pay for. So it's not a perfect system in the digital age for word of mouth reviews, but they still play an effect. And I think the biggest effect that it plays a part is, well, there's two ways. One, how it plays an effect in an impulse buy is when you're inside the store and you see the product in front of you and you have that indecision, and then you go on your phone and you look up that product and you see an influencer or a commercial where it's talking about that product, and having that person to just say that one or two words where it touches upon the concern that consumer has might sway you to buy that product. And so that's kind of immediate. That's kind of a very impressive as well, that you can be in the store and get more information about the product before the customer makes the purchase. Which I think has always, I think it's obvious, because there's sometimes, what is it, POS, place of sale? No, those boards, I forget what they're called, but sometimes you can have your product next to or on top of one of those cardboard cutouts where it's big and attention grabbing, and it has all like the benefits, and then also the feeling that the marketing team thinks that the consumer is looking for with the product. In essence, spontaneous market forces are the unintended yet predictable outcomes of a system where consumers are free to make their own choices. The decentralized natures of these decisions, coordinated by the price system, is what allows the market to adapt and evolve in ways that no single planner could ever design. Thank you. I hope you found this useful. Subscribe and like if you did. Thank you.